everybody? How do you do
Hey,
it?
Brenna. I saw a peek of you, Brenna, before you logged off. Hi, Brenna. Hey, Bill. Hi, Bill. Hey, Diana. Hey, Benjamin.
Well, you're not.
Hi. Are you cooking too?
Because they're different.
Yeah, good.
Want me to do olives?
Hey, Zoe.
Garlic? Or should we put it on mute? Because we're like yapping away.
Yeah.
Hey, Zoe. Hi, Sophia. Hey, Ro. Hello, Evelyn. Hi. Are you Evelyn or is your mom Evelyn?
I'm Evelyn.
You're Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. I'm Lena. It's so great to meet you. I'm so glad you're here. You're friends with Melissa's family, right? Cool.
Oh yeah, my mom is one of her best friends.
Yes. Hi, Evelyn. Hi. I'm glad you're here. Benjamin's here too. Hey, Maddie. Hi, Ginger. Hi. Is Owen coming later?
He is. He'll be here.
Okay.
He's finishing one thing I'm not cutting sweet potatoes.
Awesome.
Hear your response.
Hi, Melanie. Hi, Zach. Hey, Sonia, I have postcards for you. I forgot to give them to you today when you dropped by with the bread. Okay, so, oh, we still have a couple people coming in. Yeah. Hey, Leilani. Hey, Zach. Hi. I know I asked you guys to get a lot of ingredients for today. Hi, Schmook. Hi. Looks like we're going to be cooking in your office today. Is that what we're going to do, Schmook? Okay, there you are. Hey, Cameron.
She's going to a kid, and I can tell where she is. What? She's a first Rebecca.
Ooh, there you are.
One quick question.
Yeah. No, you sure?
So these are sweet red peppers from the Chez Panisse box.
Oh yeah. Oh, those are Jimmy Nardellos.
Yeah, I think, is that what they are? I've got it written down somewhere, but
they're Jimmy Nardellos.
And they said to roast them, like, yeah. Can I roast them at the same time we do sweet potatoes, but just a much shorter time?
Yeah, you can throw them in. Yeah.
Okay.
You could also roast them with your pork chop. You could pan fry them or you could roast them, either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I was like, I know somebody I can.
Yeah, those are my favorites. Those are so good. I'm so glad. Did you come all the way here to Chez Panisse to pick them up?
I did. Yeah, this is my second time doing it. But
I was there on Friday.
Oh, yay!
Yeah. Like if you want to pick it up sometime, let me know. Maybe I'll I'll try to meet you there. We can do a pickup together.
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's 5:04. So I think we're gonna get started. Hey, Cameron. Okay, so Dee Dee's gonna give me my AirPod back. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. Hello. Okay, everybody, we're working with a lot of really new ingredients today. But I think this is gonna be a fun and ambitious. We're always ambitious, right? When are we not ambitious? But we're doing a lot of techniques today. And so we're going to stay focused and on task. The first thing I want you all to do is turn on your ovens to 400. So if you haven't already, turn your oven to preheat at 400. Make sure your oven's empty. Your oven rack can be in the middle. So I'll put mine in the middle here. 400 degrees, and we'll let this preheat while we prep some other ingredients. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do, big yawn, Zoe. Okay, we're gonna brown butter. Okay, so for those of you who have not browned butter yet, it'll make your house smell so good. But it's a very delicate operation because what you have to do is there's a very, very thin line between when the butter is browned and when it's burnt. And so we're going to try to really pay close attention to our butter. And you want the butter to get to the point where it's golden brown, where the solids of the butter become kind of golden brown and nutty smelling and toasty. Once it starts to turn dark brown, you have to take it immediately off the stove. It might already be too late, but we'll be doing this together. So you want to take your butter to the point where it starts to smell nutty and the solids of the butter are golden brown, because once you take it off the oven, once you take it off the burner, it's still going to continue cooking a little bit. Okay, so go ahead and turn your stove, your saute pan. I'm using this pan here. We're going to use this pan for everything today. We're going to use this pan for browning our butter, for toasting our nuts, for frying our bread, and for sauteing our chilies. So we're going to use one pan. I've told you before, I try to be a very efficient cook and try to do as minimal washing as possible. So we're going to use this one pan, put it on your burner, and turn your burner to about medium.
Lena?
Yes.
How much butter do we need?
We're going to use a whole stick of butter. We're going to use a whole stick of butter.
Lena,
so
question.
While, yes, Diana?
Sorry. How much, no, how high of heat?
400. Medium
stove.
For your medium.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And your oven should be up to 400, everybody. So if you haven't already, I specified having everybody cut up your pre-cut your sweet potatoes into chunks. So does everybody have that already?
No.
Okay, go ahead and cut your sweet potatoes into 1.5-inch chunks. Xiaomei, that's a little big. You're gonna wanna cut yours a little smaller. Okay, cut yours into like 1.5 to half inch, or 1.5 to 1 inch chunks. So mine looks, I used about 3 potatoes, but just use as much as you think your family will eat. Corbin, that's perfect.
Auntie Lena?
Yes.
Should we leave the skin on?
I left the skin on. I just scrubbed my potatoes really well, but I left the skin on. You can peel them if you want.
Wait, how big?
About 1.5 to 1 inch chunks. So about this big.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay. So get chopping on your potatoes. Make sure they're bite sized. So about 1.5 inch to 1 inch chunks. And put them in a big bowl because you're going to be tossing your potatoes with a couple other ingredients. All right. So your potatoes should be cut, or you should be in the middle of cutting them, chopping them, put them in a big bowl. And once they're in your big bowl, grab your brown sugar, okay, and toss your sweet potatoes with about 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So I'm just gonna sprinkle my brown sugar all over my sweet potato, about 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And then just take a big spoon and just mix it all together. And then we're gonna set this aside now. The saute pan on your burner should be pretty warm by now. So go ahead and just throw your entire stick of butter into that saute pan. So we're gonna brown butter today. And this brown butter, we're gonna pour over the potatoes. And that will make the potatoes taste extra toasty and nutty. Brown butter is an ingredient that is used in a lot of different dishes these days. You'll see brown butter chocolate chip cookies, brown butter, I've seen brown butter Rice Krispie treats, brown butter ice cream, lots of ingredients, both savory and desserts are often made with brown butter. So now you'll know how to make brown butter yourself. So you can look for other ways to use it. Okay, so I'm just gonna let the butter just sit in the pan. Okay, I'm not doing anything with it yet because you don't need to stir it. You can just kind of swirl it around and make sure your butter melts. And again, my heat is on medium. And I'm just gonna let that sit there and melt for a little bit. While that's melting, let's go ahead and cut up some thyme. Okay, thyme is this herb with these little leaves on them. Looks like this. I have them already washed.
Wait,
so I'm just gonna,
Can you say how much brown sugar?
About a 1/4 cup. Thank you for asking questions, everybody, because if you ask a question, it means that somebody else probably missed it too. So I love it when you ask questions. So I'm just stripping the leaves off this thyme. If you get some of the stem, it's totally fine. And then I'm just gonna, I have this like naked stem here. I'm just gonna toss that into my compost bin. Okay, so I'm gonna strip off maybe about, I don't know, like 5 or 6 sprigs. I'll show you how much I get. And we're gonna use this thyme for a couple things. We're gonna use it for both the Romesco sauce we're gonna make later and the sweet potato. Okay.
Wait, are we doing that to the thyme right now?
I'm sorry?
Are we using the thyme right now?
The thyme?
Yeah.
Yes, we're gonna use the thyme in a little bit, but we're just stripping it off right now. And then we're just getting it ready because we're gonna add it to our butter in a little bit. And you might hear your butter starting to sputter already. Okay, I'm just leaving it right now. My butter is still, Amy, can you show the butter? My butter is all melted now, but I'm just gonna let it sit for a little bit. I'm just swirling the pan. You can see around the edges of my pan, you might be able to see, there's some parts that are already starting to brown a little bit. That's fine. It's starting to separate. Some of the solids are starting to separate out, and that's what you want. Okay, so I'm just gonna, again, leave my pan there for another minute. I'm gonna check on it every minute, every 30 seconds to every minute, because I don't want it to burn. It's not close to burning yet, so I'm just gonna keep working on my thyme here. Am I too loud? Am I shouting a little bit? Okay. Sorry if I'm shouting. So I'm just stripping leaves off the thyme. And I have my naked thyme stems. I'm gonna toss those. It looks like I have about maybe a good, maybe 2 tablespoons of thyme right now. Okay, good. So the other thing you're gonna add is your sage. So go ahead and get your sage ready. I right now have about maybe like a tablespoon. I'm gonna strip a couple more leaves of thyme off, a couple more stems of thyme. Just the leaves. It's okay if you get some stem in there. Okay, so I have about 1.5 tablespoons or so of thyme. Okay, good. And then I'm gonna get my, so you're gonna get your sage. I left out sage off my shopping list, so I forgot sage. But if you have your sage, go ahead and take off about 6 to 8 leaves. And now I'm checking my brown butter again. Okay, my brown butter is starting to look pretty toasty. And I'm gonna smell it, and it's starting to smell really good too. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off of this brown butter right now and just let it sit here because it's gonna keep browning a little bit as it cools. Okay, do you see this? This is kind of golden brown. I'm turning off the heat because I don't want this to burn. So I just turned it off, but it looks like that color. It's kind of like caramel colored. Any questions so far? Okay, so you're working on your thyme leaves and you're working on your sage. Go ahead and take off about, Do you have a question? Somebody? No? Okay. So go ahead and take about half of your thyme leaves, take half of this bunch that you have. So I would say it's like a good teaspoon or so, teaspoon and a half of thyme leaves, and add it to your brown butter. And do it very gently because it's gonna sizzle a little bit, okay? But stand back and add it to your brown butter because your thyme leaves might be a little bit damp still. Take your sage leaves, slice them up, maybe like 5 or 6 leaves of sage, and take them off the stem, and then slice them up and add them to your butter as well. So you're adding thyme leaves, 5 or 6.
Okay.
Slice up, but slice it first. Make sure you cut it into like ribbons. Cut your sage into ribbons.
When you say 5 or 6, you mean 5 or 6 stems?
Leaves.
Oh, just the leaf.
Just the leaves.
So it's not very much at all of the sage?
The sage, yeah. Well, the sage leaves are not that small. I don't want it to overpower.
You mean like these?
Yeah. Oh, is that sage? That looks like rosemary. Can you show me again?
It's not rosemary. It's not as pokey as rosemary.
Oh, that's tarragon.
Oh, we don't want that. Okay. Sorry, we're not going to do
tarragon. Tarragon's really good for chicken salad.
Okay, we'll save that for something else.
If you don't have sage, it's fine. I forgot sage, so I'm actually skipping that for myself. Sage leaves are a little bit furry. They're these long tapered leaves that are a little bit furry and kind of a pale green. Yeah, just like that, Taryn or Xiaomei. Yeah, that's a sage leaf. Yeah, that's it, Chris. That's what it's, Chris. Yeah, we have a sage leaf demonstration. If you can see Clayton's camera. So just slice it up into ribbons. Yep, there's another sage leaf. You can feel it's kind of soft and furry. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ingredients for stuffing. Hi, Chris. Chris Martin, hey. Good to see you. So slice up your sage and then throw them into your butter as well and swirl it around. Okay, brown butter should have thyme leaves and sage leaves. And now I'm going to take this brown butter and I'm going to pour it over the sweet potatoes. All right, so I'm taking this brown butter, I'm going to pour it, I'm going to scrape the herbs in with it and pour it all over my sweet potatoes, just like that. And I'm adding the herbs to it too. So I'm scraping out the herbs. And scrape as much of the brown butter as you can out of your pan. But we're gonna keep using this pan. So once you're done scraping it out, put it back on your stove. We're gonna reuse this pan. But try to scrape out as much of the herbs as you can into your potatoes. All right. I'm gonna put this back on the stove. And now I'm gonna season it with some salt and pepper. I'd say about a good tablespoon of salt. I'm just gonna eyeball it and just sprinkle it from on high. Kosher salt, okay? A good, maybe tablespoon and a half even, because this is a lot of potatoes. But use your best judgment. And then I'm also gonna put in pepper, black pepper. Also, you know, just estimate how much you think. I'm not gonna give you an exact measurement. And then toss. Toss the butter and make sure it coats all the potato chunks. Okay. I'm just tossing it, making sure every piece is coated with the sage and the thyme and the butter and the salt and pepper.
Oh, right. So you put pepper in it too, right?
Yeah, I put some pepper in. And salt, don't forget the salt. Okay, so now I'm gonna pour this onto my sheet pan. I lined my sheet pan with parchment paper, but if you use foil, that's fine too, or if you have neither, you can just put it straight onto your sheet pan.
Sorry, how much salt should it be?
I used about, well, it depends on how many potatoes you have, Jane. I used about 1.5 tablespoons, but I used 3 large sweet potatoes.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right.
Are you gonna add the liquid on the sheet pan?
Yes, you're gonna add the butter onto the sheet pan. Okay, bring the sheet pan over. Okay. I'm gonna put my sheet pan here, and I'm gonna pour all this goodness. All that butter goes in. I'm telling you, this is a very indulgent dish, but these are crazy times, and we need to do whatever we can to make ourselves comfortable and to soothe ourselves. So we are using butter and brown sugar in plentiful amounts. And then go ahead and spread it out on your sheet pan. Make sure it's in a single layer. Okay, like that. So if you need 2 sheet pans, go ahead and use 2 sheet pans. Mine happen to just fit on 1, so I'm just gonna put it on 1. But if you might need 2, you can just kind of shake it a little bit to get it all into 1 layer. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the oven. And this will stay in the oven for the rest of our cooking time together. We don't even have to think about it. We're just gonna put it in there, forget about it for a little while. We'll stir it. I'll remind you when to stir it, but I'm not gonna set a timer on it yet. Hey, Jason. Okay, so go ahead and put your potatoes in the oven. And the next step, we're gonna spend the rest of our time making Romesco sauce. I know it's a lot of work. There are a lot of ingredients. We're gonna be using dried peppers. Some of you might be using roasted bell bed peppers, that's fine. We're using nuts and bread and more herbs and spices, but
How long should you put those sweet potatoes in for?
We're gonna put them in, they're gonna cook for about 50 minutes. So for the rest of our time cooking together, they'll be in the oven.
If it's 1 layer, if it's too tight, is that too tight?
I think yours is fine, Jane. We'll toss and we'll toss them too.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So, hey Cameron, you got a haircut. Okay, so let's move on to our Romesco sauce. If you are using dried peppers like me, okay, I'm using dried peppers today. We're gonna need to heat up a bowl of water. So I have about 4 cups of water in this big bowl that's big enough for me to soak my peppers in. So I'm gonna heat this up in the microwave now for about 3 minutes, okay? So I'm just gonna get my water into the oven, microwave oven, and then I'm gonna prep my peppers. How many of you are using dried peppers? Okay, good. So good portion of you. And
how much water should we fill it up to?
I used about 4 cups of water in a big bowl.
Thank
you.
you.
It doesn't have to be a perfect measurement, Sophia. I just needed enough water to make sure it fit all my peppers.
Wait, how many peppers?
Okay, so we're gonna use, well, if you're using dried peppers, I'm gonna use 3 of these ancho chili peppers here. They're kind of big. So I'm gonna use 3 of these. And then I'm gonna use 1, you can use 1 or 2 depending on the size, but I'm using chipotle peppers also. Chipotle peppers are dried and smoked jalapeno peppers. You know those green jalapeno peppers? You can smell it. It smells smoky. It'll taste so good in this sauce. This is my own little rendition on this. Yes?
Do you put the peppers in the bowl of warm water?
If your water is already warm, and it should be pretty warm, Brenna, make sure it's pretty warm. If it's not that warm, make sure you put it back into the microwave again.
Lynna,
Okay.
if you're just using these dried ones, would you use 4 if we don't have chipotle also?
Yeah, I would use 4. 4 or 5.
Wait, can we use any fresh serranos?
No, I would not use fresh serranos. That'll be pretty spicy for this.
Lynna?
Yes?
We have chili ancho powder.
Oh, okay. No, we don't want to use powder this time.
Okay, we have the chipotle peppers, but we weren't able to get the ancho peppers.
Okay.
We just had the powder for that.
Yeah, don't use the powder because I've never done this recipe with the powder before, so I'm a little nervous about telling you how to use that. But maybe start with 2 of the chipotle, and then do you guys have red bell peppers?
Yes, we probably do.
Okay. I would use red, but you'd have to roast them first. So I'm trying to think what we could substitute. Okay, here, do this, Griffin and Heidi. Grab your red bell peppers. Grab your red bell.
We have the Jimmy Nardello one.
Oh, okay, let's do that. The saute. Use a saute pan. Take the stems off and take the seeds out and pan fry them really quickly.
Okay. We also have a jalapeno. Should we use that or?
No, don't use a jalapeno.
Thank you.
Okay. Is anyone using a roasted red bell pepper? Jane, you are, right? You're using a roasted red bell pepper?
Yes, I'm cheating. I'm using a can.
Perfect. No, that's what most people do. Yeah. Anyone else using a roasted bell pepper? Sonia. Okay. So you can skip this step that I'm talking about now. Oh, and Zoe. Okay. Anyone using a roasted, Maddie and Tyler. Okay. If you're using roasted red bell peppers, you can skip this step. This step with the hot water is only for people using dried peppers. So I'm going to get my water out of the microwave. It's pretty hot now.
Do we cut them up first, Lynna, or no?
The
dried
what?
peppers?
No, just stick them in whole.
Okay.
Because they're too hard to cut right now. That's why we're rehydrating them. I think I'm actually going to use 4 ancho chilies. Just going to go crazy. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have my bowl of hot water, and I'm putting in 4 ancho chilies and 1 chipotle pepper.
Our peppers are floating, so we can't get them to soak.
Okay, that's okay. Just kind of push them in a little bit. They'll eventually start to soak. Just push them in. Make sure they're all submerged, or they're starting to submerge.
Auntie Lynna?
Uh-huh.
We only have chipotle peppers, so how many should we put in?
Do you have any other kind of pepper, Sophia?
Maybe.
Do you have red bell peppers?
We have yellow bell peppers.
Okay, do the same thing. Pan fry them. Pan fry your red bell peppers.
Wait, so
your yellow bell peppers.
So we should slice them and then pan fry them for how long?
Yeah. Just until they're kind of blistered and brown.
Oh, we also have chili peppers.
No, too spicy.
Okay.
No, they're too spicy.
Thank you for taking this leap with me, people. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, good. We just got the bread this morning. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay, so for those of you who are letting your peppers soak, go ahead and just put them in. Make sure, I'm just kind of letting them sit in here for a while we prep our other ingredients. Okay, so you can ignore your peppers for now if you're using dried peppers. If you're using red bell peppers, you're all set. If you're roasting bell peppers or pan frying them right now, go ahead and do that. Now, for the next step, we're going to use that same brown butter saucepan to toast our nuts. So grab 4 tablespoons of nuts. I'm using almonds because we have a hazelnut allergy in our family. But you can use any combination of walnuts if you have them. Just use whatever nuts you have in your pantry. Cashews, almonds. What do you have, Taryn? Oh, walnuts, Taryn. You can use, Shomame, you can use walnuts. So I'm going to turn
4 tablespoons.
4 tablespoons total. You can even use a combination of nuts if you want. But you just need 4 tablespoons of any kind of nut. What do you have, Sophia? Is that walnut? Oh, almonds. Perfect. Great. So everybody turn your burner with your butter saucepan. Turn that burner up to about medium again, and put in your nuts. Your 4 tablespoons of nuts.
Are you putting any oil in with it?
I did not. Nope, you do not need any oil. There's already residual butter in there anyway. But generally, when you toast nuts, you don't need any oil. Hi, Shmoo, I see you. Shmupi, how do you do that with your eyes? Okay, so get your nuts into the stove, onto your pan. I'm just like poking around at my chilies, making sure they're really soaking. And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to grab your bread. Okay, I'm just using whatever bread I have. I know I specified country bread, but any kind of bread you happen to have is good. I'm using olive bread because I happen to have some olive bread. So I'm gonna take my knife, I'm gonna cut a slice that's about 1 inch thick. Okay, get this ready. Right, and then you just need 1 inch of bread. So I'll wait for you all to get that ready. And I'm gonna go take a look at my nuts. I have it up to about medium. I'm not even using a, let me, is it on the pan? I'm not even using a spoon. I'm just kind of lifting my pan and tossing it like this.
Lynna,
Yeah?
what do we do
Yes?
with the almonds again?
Oh, put them into your butter pan. Remember that pan we used for the brown butter? Yeah.
Okay.
Turn your heat up to about medium.
Okay, thank you.
And we're just toasting our nuts right now. This is not an essential step, but I find toasting anything generally makes things taste better. Okay, so toast your nuts, slice your bread. You want a slice of bread about 1 inch thick. Every so often, give your nuts a toss. Yeah, Griffin, that's good. You might, how thick is that? Let me see. You might need, can you show me how thick it is? You might need, yeah, maybe that piece. That's a little big though.
Our bread isn't very thick, so we're using 2 slices.
Okay, perfect, Brenna. Yeah, so Griffin used that slice and maybe cut half of that other one. All right. Okay, so take your nuts and just make sure they're toasty. And then go ahead and take your bread and add it to the stove also. Add it to that pan also, because we're going to be toasting this bread too. So you can just add the bread alongside the nuts. Not on top of the nuts, but just alongside. I'm kind of using it to wipe some of the butter off too, just to kind of give it extra flavor. Okay, so I'm just gonna take my bread and just let it sit in there with the nuts. Okay, so now I'm gonna check on my peppers. Peppers are still kind of hard. Some of them are harder than others, so I'm just gonna let that continue soaking. While that soaks, I'm gonna open my can of tomatoes. So if any of you have a can of tomatoes, go ahead and grab your tomatoes. You can use chopped or diced or whole tomatoes if that's all you have. We only need about 1/3 cup of the tomatoes, and I'm using a can, so I'm going to use my can opener to open my can of tomatoes.
Lynna?
Yeah?
We have chipotle chilies, but we don't have ancho chilies. Is that okay?
Chipotle chilies are pretty spicy. Zoe, do you have any other kind of pepper you can use to balance?
We have red peppers.
Roasted red bell pepper, red bell pepper.
Yeah.
Go ahead and if you can, try to pan fry that.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Lynna?
Yeah.
Sorry, we also don't have any other peppers to
Okay, so what do you have?
We only have the chipotle peppers.
Okay. Do you have any other kind of pepper?
No, not really.
Okay. So my only concern with just using chipotle pepper is that it's going to be pretty spicy. But go ahead and try it.
Okay.
Why not? Just try it. Just so use maybe 4 chipotle peppers.
Okay.
Is it okay to use this one that's got organic green chili in it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Maddie and Joyce, do you have a question? Yeah?
We don't have canned tomatoes, so can we just chop up some tomatoes?
Sure, why not? Why not? I thought about doing that too. You just have to use what you have. Everyone, when we're cooking in these times, you got to use what you have. And if all you have are chopped tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, that's totally fine. We'll make it work. Okay, so I'm going to pour about maybe a 1/3 cup. It doesn't have to be a perfect measurement, but a 1/3 cup of tomatoes into this little ramekin here that I had my almonds in. Okay.
Lynna,
so
if your nuts and bread are ready, where do you put them?
Okay, so the nuts go into your food processor, and then the bread goes on your cutting board.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for reminding me to check my nuts. So flip your bread too. If it's toasted on one side, go ahead and flip it so that it toasts the other side as well. And my nuts are about ready. They're pretty toasty. I can smell them. They're smelling nutty. So I'm gonna put my nuts only into my food processor. Only my nuts. Only the nuts go into the food processor. The bread, my bread, I'm gonna toast it a little longer. So the bread stays in the pan because I'm gonna toast it. If your bread is done toasting, you can take it out and put it on your cutting board because we're gonna chop up the bread first before we, May, pay attention please, May. You gotta get it on the right screen. You gotta toast the bread and you're gonna cut it up into chunks. Okay, so while your bread finishes toasting, I'm gonna take a garlic clove and get that ready. Okay, make sure your garlic clove is not too small. I'm gonna use like a medium-sized clove. You can use a big one too. All I'm gonna do is peel it and crush and peel it. Okay. This smashed garlic clove goes into my food processor with the nuts. And the last thing I'm gonna chop up here is some parsley. Make sure to check on your bread every so often and make sure it's not burning.
How much parsley?
I'm gonna cut up maybe about 4 sprigs or so. So like I don't know, like this is how much I have it on my cutting board here, how much I'm using. Not a ton, but enough to give it some green flecks inside the sauce. So probably once it's chopped up, maybe it'll be about a tablespoon.
Lynna, do we dice it?
The parsley you're gonna chop finely, yeah. You're gonna chop it. You don't have to chop it super perfectly finely because it's gonna go into the food processor. Okay, so I have like a little pile of parsley here on my cutting board. I'm gonna just roughly chop it. I have it with my thyme too. All right. So I have a little pile of thyme, a little pile of parsley, and then I'm gonna take my bread off the stove because it's now toasted. Okay, it's looking pretty toasty. I'm gonna put it on my cutting board now. Okay, turn the burner off, and I'm gonna use that again, that saute pan. So I'm gonna take my bread, okay, and I'm just gonna cut it into cubes, just to make it easier for the food processor to run it. So you can, once your bread is cooled enough where you can handle it, you can go ahead and put it into your food processor. I forgot to mention at the top of the hour, does everybody have their pork out? Has everyone taken their pork out of the fridge? Make sure you do that. Make sure your pork is out of the fridge, because we're gonna start working with that next. Take it, I'll show you how we'll take it out of the brine together.
Okay.
Okay. So while your peppers are still soaking, mine are still a little bit hard in some spots, so I'm just gonna let it keep soaking. Let's go ahead and take our pork out of the brine. Make sure you leave some space so that in case you splash, I would try to take your cutting board out of the way so that in case any of the brine splashes onto your cutting board, you don't want that. So I'm gonna move my cutting board out of the way to take my brine out of the pork chops out of the brine. Yes? Yeah?
Do you put the leftover time in the food processor?
Sure, you can do that, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna take my pork chops out of the brine, and I'm putting it onto a shallow dish here so that it'll drain a little bit. I'm taking a pair of tongs, and I'm moving my cutting board out of the way because I don't want the brine to accidentally splash onto the pork, onto the cutting board.
Auntie Lynna?
Yes?
Should we put the bread cubes into the food processor?
Yes, the bread cubes go into the...
We don't have a food processor, so can we use a blender?
You can use a blender.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm uncovering the pork that we brined. Ooh, you can smell the juniper berries. You can smell the allspice. I'm so sorry, I left out the allspice in my instructions when I did the video. Thank you to Grace who pointed that out to me right away. And I'm just gonna very carefully take the pork out of the brine and put it onto my pan, into this, sorry, not my pan, my shallow pie dish here, or just a dinner plate is fine too. I just want to take it out so it has a chance to kind of drain a little bit. Okay, I'm just like kind of letting each piece drip into back into the brine. Okay, and I'm also taking note that some of the pork chop pieces are thicker than others, so I'm going to make sure those don't cook as long.
Auntie Lynna? Were we supposed to put the tomatoes in the food processor also?
Not yet. You don't have to quite yet. We'll do that later. We can do that. We're actually going to saute the tomatoes first with the peppers. Okay. I'm very carefully taking the pork chops out of the brine.
Lena, ours are more of a full 1.5 inches thick, but we'll talk about
Okay. Yeah, you're just gonna need to grill yours longer on each side. Or are you gonna grill today, Ginger, or are you gonna pan sear?
We may pan sear. I'm not sure yet.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so if yours are thicker, I would sear yours more on the 7-minute side. 7 to 9 minute side for the first side, but we'll talk about that. You're right. Okay, so I'm also, as I'm taking it out of the brine, I'm also trying to make sure that none of the spices are sticking to it. So I'm just gonna take out, I have a little stack of pork chops here, and we're just gonna let that drain onto our pan, onto our this plate here. And this brine is done. We don't need this brine anymore. What I recommend doing to discard everything that's in here is just using tongs and scooping out the parsley, the onions, and the spices, and then pouring out the liquid into your sink. Okay, but we can do that later. So I'm just gonna move my brine away. I don't need this brine anymore. I'll deal with that later. Okay, and then I'm gonna wash my hands because I may have accidentally touched some of the pork. Make sure you wash your hands after you've handled raw meat. So I'm just gonna make sure my hands are washed. All right. So my pork is here. It's gonna be waiting for me to hand sear. I'm gonna now check on my sweet potatoes. Our sweet potatoes have been in the oven for about 20 minutes. I'm taking a spatula, a metal spatula, and I'm just gonna toss. The grill, you can, if you're using a grill, you can go ahead and make sure that gets ready. But if we're not gonna sear off the pork chops quite yet. I'll tell you when. But we're gonna finish our sauce first, okay? So I'm gonna check on my sweet potatoes. I'm gonna take my flat metal spatula and just toss. I can see, ooh, I can show you here what it looks like. Starting to get a little bit brown, but the bottoms are brown, the tops are not quite yet. So I'm just gonna give them a toss. I'm gonna turn some of the pieces over, okay? Make sure that every piece is coated with plenty of butter. Okay, I'm gonna put this back in the oven. And we're just gonna let that keep roasting. All right, so let's work on our sauce again. We're back to our Romesco sauce. I'm checking on my peppers. Peppers could still use a couple minutes, but let's go ahead and grind up our nuts and our bread and our garlic first. So if you have your blender ready or your food processor ready, go ahead and process your nuts and the bread with the garlic in the food processor. Give it a few pulses and make sure it's, you don't want it to be like a puree, but you want it to be like pretty finely chopped.
Do you put in the tomatoes yet?
Not yet. We're gonna cook the tomatoes in a little bit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this is just bread and nuts and garlic in the food processor. Oh, and this is what happens to me sometimes with my food processor, is sometimes my blade falls out. So I'm gonna readjust my blade. Hope that works. Yep, this happens sometimes. So sometimes what happens is when the bread is really crunchy and hard, it gets caught in my blade. So I'm just taking some of the pieces of bread that I cut and I'm cutting it even smaller so that it doesn't get caught on my blade. But if your food processor or blender has no problem, go ahead and keep blending. I'm just cutting my bread pieces a little bit finer. All right. There. Readjust here. Just cutting my bread smaller so that it doesn't get caught in the blade. And pour it back in. There you go. Hopefully this will work. Pretty good. else is having the same problem I am, cut your bread into smaller pieces. This is what can happen is your bread can get caught. A technical issue. Didn't cut my bread small enough. Okay, let's do our nuts first. See how far we get with that. If you're looking for something to do while I sort out my food processor issue, you can also start peeling and de-seeding your, not peeling, sorry, de-stemming and de-seeding your peppers, your dried peppers that are probably pretty well hydrated at this point. Okay, so if you haven't already, you can also go ahead and start taking the stems off of your peppers. This sometimes happens. Okay, much better. Okay, if anyone needs instructions on how to de-seed your peppers, I will get to that in just a second. Yeah. You can use a Vitamix, yes. Oh, I could use a Vitamix, but I'm already in the middle of using my processor, so I don't want to swap horses in midstream. And I also told you guys to use a food processor, so I feel like we need to experience, I need to experience this with you. Anyone else having issues with their food processor? Hopefully not. Okay. Okay, so my almonds are almost processed. Hopefully nobody else is having the same issues I'm having. I forgot that this happens sometimes. Just posting it. Okay. So if you haven't already, go ahead. I'll show you how I'm going to process my peppers here. Okay. There you go. Okay. So I have my hydrated peppers. Okay, you can see here that the stem comes off pretty easily. I'm going to pour the seeds out, and you can even open them up with your fingers and take the seeds out here, just like that. Okay, I'm going to put it on my cutting board, and I'm going to take the stems and the seeds off of each pepper that I've hydrated.
Auntie Lynna?
Uh-huh.
What should we do if ours don't actually have stems on them?
You're using the bell peppers, the yellow bell peppers, right?
No, I mean, because our dry, like the chipotle ones, they don't have any stems on them.
Oh, okay. Then go ahead and open them up and take the seeds out.
So should I just slice it open and then take out the seeds? Okay.
Yeah. Is it already hydrated, Sophia?
Some of them are, some of them aren't.
Okay. try to hydrate, try to get them as soft as possible. They should still feel, it's okay if they feel a little leathery, but we should try to get them as soft as possible.
Lena, we might have gotten really excited about cleaning off our cutting board, and I'm afraid we've put things in that weren't supposed to go in the Romescos.
It's all gonna, what did you put in?
We put the thyme and the parsley in.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, I just didn't know if I ended up playing with the pork.
Yeah. No, that's fine. You can do, that's what goes into the Romesco.
Okay, good news.
Okay. Okay, so remember now we're taking the peppers and we're taking our seeds out and our stems off. Okay, and I'm just gonna put this on the cutting board here. And I'm gonna throw out this soaking liquid. You see I have this pepper soaking liquid. It's kind of bitter. We don't want this anymore. So I'm pouring that out. And I've taken all the seeds out of my peppers, like this. And I'm gonna go back to my stove. We're gonna saute these peppers back in our butter saute pan again. Okay, so turn your heat back up to medium. Grab your olive oil and put it in about like 2 tablespoons of olive oil. It's okay if there's some remnants of butter in them. About 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Swirl it around. And I have my heat up to medium. And I'm going to put my peppers in now. If you have sauteed peppers, you can go ahead and you can put that into your pan as well with the olive oil.
Wait, what heat should we put it onto?
Medium.
What are we putting in the pan? Olive oil and what?
We're gonna let the olive oil heat up a little bit, and then we're gonna put in the peppers that you just hydrated.
Okay.
Did you see also the jarred tomato, jarred peppers?
Jarred peppers, yes, you can put in your jarred peppers now into the olive oil. We're just gonna saute it for a little bit. You can also just leave them whole. And just let that saute down for just to get even softer. I'm gonna continue processing my bread and my almonds because my bread didn't get completely processed. And just let your peppers saute in the olive oil for about a couple minutes. All right. And you can also add a little bit of salt. And now you can grab your tomatoes. If you're using fresh tomatoes, add them now. If you're using fresh tomatoes, add them now. If you're using canned tomatoes, add them in like 30 seconds. We're gonna let the fresh tomatoes cook down a little longer first. Fresh tomatoes might need a little bit more time to cook down. I'm gonna add my my canned tomatoes in just a few seconds. Okay, I'm adding my tomatoes in now. My canned tomatoes, about a 1/3 cup. Whatever tomatoes you don't use from your can, if you don't think you'll use it this week, you can put it into your freezer and they'll be just fine until you're ready to use them. You can throw them into a pasta sauce. You can make another batch of romesco. All right, so I'm just gonna let that stir. Okay. I keep working on my bread and almonds. Okay, now I'm gonna take this off the pan, take this off the heat, and I'm gonna put this into my food processor. So add the cooked tomatoes and the peppers to the food processor with the nuts and the almonds and the garlic. Okay. Smells good.
Smells very spicy.
And while you have your food processor open, go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil to it as well. So I'm adding a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And we're gonna process this down to puree. I'm gonna start by pulsing.
You should add more tomato because it keeps on the consistency.
Is that me? Just mute everybody. Nice.
Wait, you add the peppers to the...
You add the peppers and to the tomato, add the peppers and tomatoes to the bread and the almonds.
Okay.
And if you haven't already added your thyme, you can add your thyme to it too. And you can add your parsley now. Okay, and I'm gonna take half a lemon. I have a half a lemon here from Coda and Karen's tree. I'm gonna add half of this lemon, this lemon juice from this lemon, half a lemon to this sauce mixture. That'll add a little bit of tartness. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna add more olive oil. So you're gonna add about a total of maybe like a cup of olive oil to this Romesco mixture, this Romesco sauce. So I'm adding about a cup of olive oil. Remember, this is a sauce. Right now it's pretty thick, right? So you want it to be saucy. So we're gonna add about a cup of olive oil. I'm also gonna add some salt and pepper. So I'm adding maybe like a teaspoon of salt and a few grains of pepper. I'm gonna keep pulsing it.
Did you add the thyme yet?
All right. I added the thyme in also. I added the thyme and the parsley already. So in your food process, Jane, you have a question?
No, you answered the question on time.
Oh, okay. So in your food processor, there should be the bread cubes, the toasted bread cubes, the almonds, the peppers, either red bell peppers or your dried peppers that you rehydrated and sauteed, tomatoes, salt and pepper, at least a cup of olive oil, garlic, parsley, and thyme. That should all be in here. I think mine needs a little bit more olive oil, and you make sure to taste it for salt and pepper too. So grab a tasting spoon and taste it. The texture should be like a coarse sauce. You should be able to spread it, but it should be spoonable. So taste it for, oh, and lemon juice too. You can add a little bit of lemon juice, the half a lemon. Also, make sure you grab a spatula and scrape the sides down so that the sides get blended in also. And mine needs more salt, so I'm going to add more salt to mine. I can taste the almonds. I can taste the texture of the toasted bread. I can taste the garlic and the smokiness of the chipotle peppers. If you used only chipotle peppers, I would put in a little bit more olive oil and parsley just to kind of mellow it out a little bit. And you should also have maybe a little bit of tartness to it too, just a tiny bit of tartness. So if it's not that tart, you can add a splash of red wine vinegar or any kind of vinegar you have. I'm gonna add some red wine vinegar to mine just to give it a little bit of tartness.
Wait, Lena,
Right.
what did you just add?
I added a splash of vinegar.
Okay, thanks.
Anytime?
Make sure you taste it along the way. Make sure it's salty enough.
Oh, any type of vinegar?
What's it supposed to taste like?
It's supposed to taste salty, and it's not just flavor you want, it's also the texture. It should be salty, a little bit tart. Is it too spicy? Yeah, that's because you used chipotle pepper. How much yellow bell pepper did you put in?
What's that?
What?
How much yellow bell pepper did you put in?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Well, we don't really have a blender, so we have a bullet. So
Oh, okay.
we're being creative.
How about the almonds and the bread? Can you taste that?
I kind of taste the bread, not really the almonds. Just spicy.
You know what you can do? Sophia, do you like mayonnaise?
Yeah.
Okay, so take like a cup of mayonnaise and put in like a couple tablespoons of that sauce that you made. That could work too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my sauce is done. I'm gonna take the sauce and transfer it into a bowl. And again, make sure you taste it along the way. It should be salty and kind of nutty. It should be it's also the texture too. It should be kind of smoky. It should be a little spicy, a little garlicky, and slightly tart. This is a sauce that originates in Spain and in Catalan, in the Catalan region. And they use it over like roasted meats, roasted vegetables. You can also spread it onto sandwiches. You can mix it with mayonnaise and spread it onto a sandwich. You can mix it with mayonnaise and use it as a dip for vegetables and crackers. I've seen it on pastas. People mix it into pasta with some cream sauce. This is a very versatile sauce, and you can use it for lots of things. I'm just scooping it out of my food processor into this bowl, and this will go really well with your pork chops. So we're gonna get ready to cook our pork chops next. Okay, so here's our Romesco sauce. You can see it's kind of pasty, right? It's kind of pasty. It's spoonable, and it's used as a condiment. All right, so we're getting ready to cook our pork chops next. And I'm also gonna I'm gonna have you guys grab your either a saute pan, a cast iron pan, or a grill pan. I'm gonna use this cast iron pan. And I'm gonna turn the heat up to medium high. So turning the heat up to about medium high.
My potatoes are ready.
Okay, good. So grab your potatoes out of the oven if your potatoes are ready. And you can mine could use maybe a little bit more browning. I'm gonna give mine one more toss. You can see, I'll show you here. It's brown, relatively brown on one side. Could use a little bit more browning. So if you want to take yours out now, you can. If you want yours to brown a little more, that's fine too. I'm gonna put mine in for another maybe 5 minutes, but some of your potatoes might already be done. Okay, so while your cast iron pan is heating on medium high, I'm gonna grab the pork chops that we have draining on your plate here. I'm gonna move it over to the stove. Okay, and make sure you also have a pair of tongs that you can use to place the pork chops onto your pan, and that you have a platter nearby. So make sure you have a large platter nearby that you can put your cooked pork chops onto. So,
Lena,
just a couple,
do you put any oil in the pan for the pork chops?
Yes, I'm gonna put in some olive oil. So I'm putting in about a couple tablespoons of olive oil, enough to coat the pan.
How much? How hot should it be for the grill?
For the grill, I would say medium high.
Okay, but like what temperature?
What temperature? Are you using a stovetop grill?
No, just like a grill.
A grill? I don't know what temperature to say. Maybe like 475-ish.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, pretty hot.
And if we're doing the grill, do we put oil on it ahead of time, Lena?
You can rub the grill with some oil, yes.
Okay, but not on the pork, because that'll make it flare.
You could put it on the pork too, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, you could put it on the pork.
Thank you.
Auntie Lena?
Yeah.
On the grill, how much per side? How long per side?
Okay, so it depends on how thick your pork chop is. My pork chops are about an inch to an inch and a half thick. If they're an inch and a half to 2 inches thick, I would err on the side of longer. So maybe 7 minutes on the first side. 7 minutes on the first side. If your pork chops are like on the thinner side, I'm gonna put mine on for about maybe 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And I'm only gonna be able to fit in about 2 or 3 pork chops at once. So we're gonna be doing this in batches. Yes? Yeah?
If the pan is heated up, do we put the pork chops in now?
Yeah, put in about 2 or 3, Brenna. Make sure they're in one layer, that they don't touch each other. Okay. I mean, they can touch each other, but they shouldn't overlap.
Okay.
Okay. So be careful when you put them in, because they might splatter a little bit.
And Auntie Lena? How do you know when they're done?
They should be they should be browned on one side, and they should still be slightly pink near the bone. So make sure your pan is at medium high, because as soon as you put your pork in, it's going to cool the pan down. So make sure you're doing it on medium high. So McKenna, the spinach is next. So while your pork is in your pan, grab a big bowl, like your big bowl. I don't know if you still have your bowl that you mixed your sweet potatoes in. You can put your spinach, your cleaned baby spinach, into this pan, into this big bowl that you had your sweet potatoes in. Or if you want to use a different bowl, that's fine too. Add your spinach to this bowl, and then pour the hot potatoes on top. So I'm taking
how much spinach?
I specified about a half a pound. The spinach is gonna wilt in the heat of the sweet potato. So I'm putting in like quite a bit of spinach because it's all gonna wilt. I'm taking my potatoes out of the oven now, and I'm gonna put them directly onto the spinach and mix them together. And the heat of the potato will wilt the spinach and cook the spinach. So you can see here, I'm just putting it directly on. What, Vinny? Okay, you can see the potatoes are nicely browned. Believe it or not, the actual recipe for this calls for bacon, but I decided I would not like overly hit us over the head with pork today. Okay, so be very careful because the potatoes are hot. So very gently toss the sweet potatoes with your spinach. Okay, and the heat of the potatoes are going to wilt the spinach down. So the other thing, if you really like the taste of your Romesco sauce, you can add some to the sweet potatoes now. If you're worried that they're too spicy, you don't have to. But if you want, you can add like a couple tablespoons of the Romesco sauce to the potatoes as you toss it with the spinach. All right.
It's gonna fall out here.
Okay, it's really hot right now.
All right.
Okay. So the potatoes should be really hot so that you want them to wilt the spinach down. And then taste it too for salt and pepper.
Yeah, hold on a second.
The spinach will have diluted the flavor a little bit, so you might need to add a little bit more salt. So at what internal temperature, I mean, what was the question? For the pork? Good question. I am not great at temperatures, but I would say we're gonna cook it on one side for 5 to 7 minutes and then flip it over and cook it on the other side for another maybe 4 to 5 minutes. And then we're gonna just let it still be a little bit pink inside. It depends on how well you like your pork. I like my pork to be medium to medium rare, so they'll still be a little pink. I don't have a temperature. Ginger and I talked about this last time. I think we decided it was like 145 maybe. But I don't use a temperature gauge, unfortunately. So my pork is still searing. It needs another 3 minutes.
Lynna, should I pat down the pork chops before I put them on the grill?
You can if you want. You don't have to though. To me, patting down the meat is just another opportunity to spread bacteria. That's why we let the pork drain a little bit before we put it on the pan.
Add a little more because.
Okay. How's everyone doing? Make sure you have your platter ready. This is what my potatoes look like. I added some Romesco in. So I'm gonna be flipping my pork chops shortly. Any questions? Make sure to season
the brine.
Oh, the brine you can toss, Leilani. The brine you can toss. Just make sure you take all the solid ingredients out, and then you can pour the rest down into your sink. Okay, so my pork is going to be ready to turn soon. Make sure you taste your sweet potatoes and taste it for saltiness. Make sure it's salted enough. I added Romesco to mine, so it gives it some smokiness too. All right, so I'm now coming to my stove, and I'm going to kind of just take a peek at one side of my pork chop. It's looking very nicely brown. I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to make sure, again, there's enough space on the in the pan for all three. I'm going to set a timer for 4 minutes. Hey, Google, set a timer for 4 minutes. Hey, Google, set a timer for 4 minutes.
Okay, 4 minutes. And that's starting now.
All right. So I debated a long time whether to cook this dish with you all, because I know it's quite involved. Pork chops are kind of a big thing. You know, they're big pieces of meat, but I felt I've been craving this dish for a while. I've been feeling like I needed some comfort food, and it's one of my absolute favorite dishes to make. So I decided to just plow ahead and do it with you all. So I'm glad you guys did this. While this pork is cooking, I also want to let you know some of the edges of the pork may need a little bit more time to sear. So I'll kind of show you later. I'll show you right now, actually, what you can do to get the sides cooked. If you can just take a pair of tongs and just kind of stand it up a little bit like this, just to sear the sides off, like that. Okay, I'm gonna do that after the pork is done on that one side. I don't tend to flip my meat a lot while it's cooking because I really want it to kind of keep the juices inside as much as possible. How's it going, everybody?
Lynna?
Yeah.
On the grill, if we have really thick pork chops, how long on the second side?
On the second side, I would do at least 5 minutes. And then don't forget, you'll also want to stand your pork chops up a little bit, Owen, and in order to get the edges cooked too.
Thank you.
So you'll just want to hold it with your tongs and make sure that the edges get cooked, the sides get cooked. If your house is getting a little smoky, if you have a fan, turn on your fan. Okay, so just waiting to sear off the rest of my pork chops. As your pork chops are done, you can take one off and take a knife and test it. Just to test it, what it means is just to cut it open by the bone and make sure it's not too pink. If your pork chops are medium rare to medium, it means it's still going to be a little pink, and it's fine. What you don't want is overcooked pork chops because then they become really tough and dry. And they will continue to cook once you take them off the burner.
Have to be over 137 to get rid of the trichinosis.
Okay, thank you. 137, yes. Thank you, Ginger. You're my temperature gauge. So I'm just 13 seconds away from 4 minutes on my second side. I'm going to take my pork chop now and kind of cook the sides a little bit. Turn my timer off. And like I said earlier, I want to make sure the sides are cooked. So I'm just going to stand them up and sear the sides off a little bit. Just like maybe like 10 seconds aside. I'm just rolling it in there. Okay. Just searing it off here. Okay. I'm going to put this onto my serving platter and cook the sides of my second pork chop. I know I specified 6 pork chops. Again, that's assuming you want leftovers. If you are searing off 6 pork chops today, you'll be doing a second batch shortly with me. You don't have to cook them quite as well done because if you're going to be reheating them tomorrow for lunch, for example, you want them to be slightly undercooked tonight so that you can still ensure a not overcooked pork chop. Okay, so I'm just searing off the second one. I'm going to put in a couple more pork chops now. Be very careful putting them in. They might splatter a little bit. Okay. So I'm just gonna, I want a nice crust on the pork chop, which is also why I don't flip it too much. Hey Google, set a timer for 6 minutes.
All right, 6 minutes.
How do you what?
Now.
Test it. So we're gonna test our pork chops now. I'm gonna take the ones I have here, and I'll show you here. I'm going to take a steak knife and a fork, and I'm going to just cut into a part near the bone. So you can see there's like a little T-bone here. I'm just gonna cut into it. This one is slightly pink, and it's fine. It's actually perfectly done. It's slightly pink. I don't know if you can tell, but it'll also continue to rest as you let it sit here. It will continue to cook a little bit more too. If you're worried about it being underdone, you can also put it back in your pan. But these are done. I'm gonna cut into this one and just test it by the bone. Yeah, and it's slightly pink. You want it to be slightly pink. If it looks raw and very pink, then put it back on your pan. Any questions? I'm still here. So the way I'm gonna serve this is I have these pork chops here on my platter. I'm gonna put this alongside the sweet potatoes and the spinach. So what it'll look like, something like this. You can arrange it however you want. I'm not very great at plating. I know friends who are much more expert at it. Just like that. And then you can serve the Romesco sauce. If you really like it, you can smear it onto the pork chop. or you can serve it on the side with your pork chops. All right. So I'm still here to answer any questions.
Lynna, I bought 5 pork chops and they're pretty big. Can I just keep 3 in the brine overnight and just cook them tomorrow?
I would take it out of the brine, Jane, but you can put it into the fridge tonight, but out of the brine.
Okay, or is it better to cook now? I think it's better to cook them tomorrow.
Either way. If you want it to be fresh and hot tomorrow, maybe cook it tomorrow, but I would take it out of the brine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Romesco sauce. Before I added the balsamic, he said it tastes like Muhammara.
Yummy.
Oh, yes. That's right. Yeah. Any other questions? I can't hear you. What? The sauce. So Shmoo, the sauce can be put, you can either smear it onto the pork chops or you can serve it on the side. You can serve it in a little bowl on the side. Any other questions? Oh, beautiful, Jane. You have a beautiful crust on that. That's a great sear. It's a little pink, but why don't you taste it and kind of I would test it a little bit. You know what I've done in the past too? There's been times when I bought like 2-inch pork chops. I've just thrown it into the microwave for another 30 seconds. That could also work too.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's a good medium rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for joining. I'll see you in a little bit, okay? I'll be coming by in a little bit. What? I'll just go drop it off your doorstep. You're so close to me, so.
Thank you, Lynna.
Don't worry.
That's okay. My dessert cannot wait, Jane.
Thank you, Lynna.
Bye.
Hey, Lynna,
Thank you.
I know now what you need.
What? Oh, man. Oh, Chris, I actually have one. I have the same one you have.
These are magic.
I have them, but I'm just too lazy. I just told you. I know I should use it.
Thank you, Auntie Lynna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynna.
Thanks for joining me. Thank you for cooking a very
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
I'll be here in a second.